He was a warrior. He could break his chains. He conquered the Philistines, but he became a traitor to himself. Now, before we slam Samson as a weak or cowardly person, let's take a look at our temptations, the temptations in our lives. 1 John 2:16 states, "For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but it is of the world." God warns us against worldliness. The temptations of lust for us, the temptations of lust what could enchant us to sin? I'm not talking about you all. Clothing, money. The temptation of lust, sports. The temptation of lust, for me, could be another man. I'm not talking about you all now. I said I'm talking about me. Temptations of lust could be another woman. The temptation of lust could be my children. The temptations that will enchant me to sin could be my house. The temptation of lust for me could be my status. And the other one that I thought about, the temptation of lust that enchants me to sin, could be me, self. Now, when we're ready to slam Samson as a weak or cowardly person, let's remember our own temptations. Let's remember our own lusts and what enchants us, draws us away to sin. It was not Samson's physical prowess that delivered him. It was God's Spirit. We, God's church, we too need. No, He is mandatory in our lives. The Bible reveals the boundless grace and love of God toward those whose lives are so bankrupt of virtues pleasing to Him. That's the reason that we needed salvation. We need deliverance. We as sinners need deliverance and salvation. Without God's Spirit, we are blind. We are in bondage. We are dead. We have fallen into a deep sleep. Extremity becomes God's opportunity. God is saying to us, awake from your slumber. He is saying, wake up, because you sleep and you slumber. Wake up. I'm just going to make a few points, and then I'm going to take my seat. I'm not going to be very long. Just as Samson, the church is, number one, ineffective. I asked Pastor, when he asked me to preach, I said, you sure you want me to preach? Because whatever God tells me to say, that's what I'm going to say. We are ineffective. We go through the motions. We come to Bible study. We come to prayer meeting. We come to this meeting and that meeting, but we become ineffective. You know why? We're going through the motions. God is sick of us going through the motions. Ineffectiveness, as defined by Webster, is not producing or having the effect that is desired. Or, I'm going to put it in the terms of a child of God, no power or ability to transform lives. What did Christ come to do? To transform lives, making disciples. As you are going, as I'm walking down the street, I'm making a disciple. As I'm going to the grocery store, I'm making a disciple. As I'm cooking my food in my house, I'm making disciples. As I work at my job, I'm making a disciple. Some of the synonyms that I discovered for ineffectiveness are counterproductive, abortive, fruitless, non-productive, useless, and worthless. The word says if salt has lost its savor, it is good for nothing. It can't even be strong under your foot. It's not good for anything. Don't lose your saltiness. God's desire for us as his children is the ability to transform lives by our lives. When we become ineffective, we are useful. Samson's calling from birth was to begin the deliverance of Israel from Philistine oppression. If you read in Judges 13 and 5, reading the account of Samson's life and then his downfall with Delilah, you might tend to think Samson wasted his life. He was a failure. Samson's life sometimes mirrors some of us sitting right here today. Yet even still, Samson accomplished God's assigned mission. Samson was not a failure. On the contrary, he was chosen and he accomplished God's assigned mission. He was fruitful to complete God's task. How effective are we when God gives us an assignment? Just as Samson, the church is incompetent. Again, defined by Webster as lacking the qualities needed for effective action. Incapable, unfit, ineligible, wanting. In fact, the New Testament does not list Samson's failures, nor his incredible acts of strength. Hebrews chapter 11:32 names him in the roll call hall of faith, among those who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, whose weakness was turned to strength. This proves that God can use people of faith. No matter how imperfectly they live their lives, we become able, capable, qualified, skillful, and sometimes experts when yielded to the master. We might look at Samson and his infatuation with Delilah, considered him gullible. Some of us might even say he was stupid. Because how many times can you get set up? His lust, notice I didn't say his love. I said his lust, because John 2:16 says the lust of the flesh, the lust of eye, and the pride of life. His lust for Delilah blinded him to her lies and her true nature. He wanted so badly to believe she loved him that he repeatedly fell for deceptive ways. After the third time at luring out his secret, why didn't Samson catch on? Because he developed a spiritual callousness to sin. Sin blinds us into thinking we can handle it, or we can flirt with sin or play with fire and don't get burnt. By the fourth enticement, Samson had collapsed. I think the word said he was vexed unto death in his spirit. The devil knows how to wear you down. That's why if you play with him, you will get burned. Why didn't he learn? Why did he give his temptation into temptation and give up his treasured gift? Again, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. We think we can handle it. I'm talking about me, I'm not talking about you. Our third issue, independence. Independence from God. Webster defines it again. I go to the dictionary quite frequently. Not subject to control by others, self-governing, not requiring or relying on someone else or others. Now, you know the thing that really got me with this one when we said independence? The synonyms. Let me see some of them, and let me see if you can find the key word for a lot of them. Self-sufficient, self-reliant, self-subsistent, self-sustaining, self-supported, self-supporting, self-sustained, self-sustaining. Who's the focal point there? Because Samson is just like you and me. When we give ourselves over to sin, when we sleep, we don't realize the Spirit of God has departed from us.